If your home is sitting on the market right now in Willoughby, or if you're about to list and you're scared it might sit, the answer you might hear from almost everyone is price it right and it will sell. And I've been saying some version of that too, but I want to challenge that today because price it right sounds like advice, but it doesn't actually tell you anything. I'm Jamie Lieb and I spent 10 years as a teacher before going into real estate. And one of the things that carried over is if someone leaves the conversation more confused than when they came in, something went wrong. So in this video, I'm gonna walk you through what's actually happening in Willoughby right now and be straight up with you. Because like one of my principals once said, clear is kind. Everyone's been saying we're in a buyer's market. And yes, technically that's true. Fraser Valley's sales to active ratio has been sitting around the 8 to 10%, which is well below the 12 to 20% range you'd call balanced. But here's what the stat doesn't tell you. Which homes are in that 8 to 10%? Because not everything is sitting. Some homes are selling quickly. Some are selling around that 20 to 35 day average. And some are genuinely not moving at all. The difference between those groups isn't just luck, and it isn't just price. It comes down to a few very specific things, and I want to actually show you what they are instead of just telling you to stand out. Okay, here's the part I really want you to watch. Every agent, including myself, has told sellers to price it right. And the sellers nod because it sounds reasonable. But here's what nobody follows it up with: the actual numbers. What does priced right mean for your specific home on your specific street in this specific month? For example, in Willoughby right now, with benchmark townhomes around the high 700s to low 800s, the line between priced right and priced to sit can be as small as $20,000. And buyers can feel this immediately, even if they can't articulate why. So let me show you what that gap actually cost. I want to break this down the way I'd explain it to anyone, because the math here is simple, but most people have never seen it laid out. Let's say you list a townhome at $849,000. The market is telling you, through no showings, slow activity, that buyers see it closer to $819,000. That's a $30,000 gap. Now, every week that home sits, a few things happen. Your carrying costs keep running, mortgage, strata fees, utilities, and in a typical Willoughby townhome, that's roughly $3,000 to $4,000 a month. So 4 weeks of sitting cost you $3,000 to $4,000 in carrying costs alone before you've changed anything. But here's the part that really adds up. The longer a home sits, the more negotiating powers buyers feel they have. And what started as a $30,000 gap can easily become a $40,000 or $50,000 gap, because buyers who've watched your listing for 45 days aren't coming in at asking price. They're coming in lower than they would have on day one. So the real cost of testing the market isn't just the price drop. It's the price drop plus the carrying costs plus the negotiating leverage you handed to the buyer by waiting. That's the number nobody runs for you. And once you see it, pricing stops feeling like a gut call and starts feeling like a decision you can actually make with clarity. And I'm not saying this to scare anyone. That's genuinely not the point here. I'm saying this because I think sellers deserve to make this decision with the full picture in mind, not just with a vague instruction to price it right. When you understand what waiting actually costs, you can choose your strategy, and that's a very different feeling than just hoping it's going to work out. Here's something specific to Willoughby that makes all of this more intense. And it's something I noticed early on when I started to work in this area. There's a high concentration of townhomes and condos, and a lot of them are genuinely very similar. Same floor plans, and sometimes the same complex. Buyers right now might be touring 5 to 8 homes in a single weekend. And when everything looks similar, buyers don't choose the best home. They choose the best value. They're doing the math in their heads, consciously or not. So if your home is even slightly above where comparable sales landed in the last 30 to 60 days, they don't negotiate. They just move to the next one. Right now, attached homes in Willoughby are averaging around 40 days on the market. The homes selling faster aren't necessarily nicer. They're just positioned better from the start. One thing a lot of sellers in Willoughby genuinely don't factor in is presale competition. Your resale home isn't just competing with other resales. It's competing with brand new units that come with warranties, incentives, and that new build feel a lot of buyers are drawn to. And here's the honest version of what that means. Your home has to offer something presale can't. That's usually price, immediate availability, or a specific feature that new builds don't have. Perhaps a layout, a location within the neighborhood, or a view. If you can't name what that is for your home, that's worth figuring out before you list. Not because it's a deal breaker, but because knowing your answer makes every other decision cleaner. I want to flip the usual advice here because I think it can actually mislead sellers. The standard line you might hear is, fix everything, stage everything, make it perfect. And yes, presentation matters. Scuffed walls, dark lighting, cluttered rooms, they do affect how buyers feel. But here's something I've learned studying this market. Over-improving before listing can be a real trap. When sellers spend significantly on renovations and then reprice to try to recoup it, they often push themselves above where buyers will actually act. And in a market like this, that's a costly mistake. So the question I think worth asking isn't, what should I fix? But it's more so, what's the minimum that gets this home feeling move-in ready without pushing the price into territory buyers won't follow? Those are two very different questions. And honestly, the answer is different for every home and every price point, which is exactly the kind of thing I want to work through with you before you list. Let's talk about the 2-week window, because I think it's one of the most misused ideas in this market right now. In a faster market, the 2-week window made sense. If your home didn't sell in 10 to 14 days, momentum was gone. But we're not in that market. Homes in the Fraser Valley are averaging 40 days or more right now. So if yours hasn't sold in 2 weeks, that's not a red flag. What matters is what the activity is actually telling you. No showings is a different problem from showings with no offers. One is usually a pricing or search visibility issue. The other is typically about presentation or how it compares to the competition. Different problems, different fixes. I used to tell struggling students the same thing. Try harder isn't a solution unless you know where the gap is. So before you change anything, make sure you're solving the right problem. This next one might ruffle some feathers, but I think it's worth saying out loud. Historically, most people wait for spring to list. And yes, spring brings more buyers, but it also brings a flood of new listings, which means your home suddenly has a lot more competition with all fresh photos, new energy, and sellers who haven't been worn down yet. What I've seen in the data is that some sellers who listed in late February, just ahead of the spring rush, actually did better than the ones who waited. Fewer competing listings, and buyers who've been looking all winter are now ready to move. I'm not saying spring is the wrong call. I'm saying it's worth looking at your specific situation before assuming that spring is automatically better. Sometimes the quieter moment is the smarter one. Here's something I want to be honest about, and I think it's something a lot of agents avoid saying because it means potentially losing a client. For some homeowners in Willoughby right now, selling might genuinely not be the right move. If your equity is thin, if you're not moving out of the lower mainland, if you'd be selling in a soft market then turning around and buying in that same market, the math might not work out in your favor right now. I'm a newer agent and I don't have decades of transactions behind me, but what I do have is a genuine interest in making sure that the people I work with make the right decision for their situation, not just the decision that gets a deal done. So if you're on the fence, and not should I list in March or April, but genuinely, if you're asking yourself, should I sell at all right now? That's worth a real conversation. An honest look at your specific numbers, not a pitch. So let me bring this together, because I've spent most of this video on what doesn't work, and I want to leave you with what actually does. The homes that are selling in Willoughby have 3 things in common. First, they're priced based on what's actually sold, not what's listed. And the sellers went in understanding the real cost of sitting if they got it wrong. That clarity changes everything about how you approach the price conversation. Second, they're positioned against the specific competition, not the market in general, but the actual 5 or 6 homes a buyer is going to tour the same weekend. Knowing what those homes look like and what they're priced at matters more than any general market stat. Third, the sellers are willing to adjust early when the feedback came in, not panic adjusting, not dropping 50K in week 2, but reading the signals clearly, showings without offers, specific buyer feedback, and then responding with intention instead of emotion. None of that requires years of experience to execute. It requires the right information, a clear plan going in, and someone who's going to be straight up with you along the way. And that's genuinely what I try to be. Not the agent that's going to tell you what you want to hear, but the one who makes sure you actually understand what you're walking into so that you can make a confident decision. If you're a homeowner in Willoughby thinking about selling, or you've been sitting on the market for a while wondering what's wrong, I hope this video gave you some helpful insight. I came into real estate from teaching, and the one thing that hasn't changed is this. My job is to make sure you leave the conversation with more clarity than you came in with. That's it. If you want to sit down and actually run the numbers for your home, look at what it would realistically sell for, what the cost of different strategies would be, or what your specific competition looks like right now, I am so happy to do so. No pressure, no obligation. Feel free to use the link below to book a time with me or message me directly. Either way, I'm happy to talk it through. Let's continue to explore Langley, where learning meets living.